Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we will be discussing the life of baby Lefty from the Rollin 60s, who will go down for a murder after killing a man in the Van Ness Gangster Brims hood. Now Dante Ellis, aka Baby Lefty, was born on April 10th, 1981 in South LA. Baby Lefty lived in a Rollin 60s hood known as the Gutter Avenue clique. Now the 60s are one of the largest predominantly African-American street gangs on the west side. They have multiple cliques like Dime Block, Bryanhurst, Front Hood, Over Hills, and the Gutters. Now the Gutters is known to be one of the most active cliques of the 60s. Many members from this area are responsible for multiple shootings and murders. Now Baby Lefty was one of those members from the Gutters who was active. Now some of the main 6-0 rivals are the Van Ness Gangster Brims, the Hoovers, the 8 Trays, the Inglewood families, and Black P Stones. Now at a young age, Lefty would get his put on, and he would start running the streets, getting into trouble. Now he attended Crenshaw High, getting into squabbles with rivals like the Van Ness Gangster Brims and the Inglewood families. Now by the mid-2000s, Lefty would find himself going back and forth to jail on minor offenses like driving without a license. And in 2005, he would do 48 days in county for being caught with a loaded firearm. But in 2012, everything would change for Lefty. And now the 60s had many open beefs at the time, and at this point they lost a lot of homies due to these wars. Now Baby Lefty would decide that it was open season on whoever he caught slipping. Now the day after celebrating his birthday, on April 11, 2012, at around 10:50 a.m., Baby Lefty and another member from 6-0 would drive across Slauson Avenue directly into the Van Ness Brims hood on 54th Street. Now walking down the street that day was 20-year-old Larry Johnson III. Now Larry had just moved to LA to live with his mother and siblings from North Carolina. Family and friends referred to Larry as Young Cali, short for California. His mother and his brothers lived on 54th directly in the Van Ness Brims hood. Now Larry was not a gang member, and at this point in time, he was not in LA for that long. So he was unaware how deep the gang violence was at this moment. Now for the short time that Larry had been in LA, he would become cool with another teen known as DJ from that area. Now that Wednesday morning as Larry was walking back home, DJ was also outside working with his boss known as JB, working at his local business on 54th. Now as Larry walked near Arlington Avenue, a dark Honda Civic pulled up at the corner. Inside was 60s member Baby Lefty, who sat in the passenger seat. Lefty would roll down the window and ask Larry where he was from. Suddenly, Lefty pulled out a pistol and opened fire. He would let off 6 shots, hitting Larry multiple times, who would then take a few steps before collapsing near the curb. Now the 60s would then speed down 54th and then turn down 8th Street. Immediately 911 would be called, and by the time the police would arrive, witnesses were trying to perform CPR on Larry, who had been shot multiple times in his torso and his leg. Now his mother and his siblings, who stayed literally down the street, would come running to see Larry on the ground fighting for his life. Eventually the EMTs would take him to the hospital where Larry Johnson would be pronounced dead. Now once detectives began their investigation, they would start talking to witnesses. 15-year-old DJ would tell police that he heard gunshots and saw Larry lying on the ground near Arlington. He would also go on to say that he did see a vehicle and a man's arm hanging out the passenger side window. He would tell detectives that as the car passed them, he did see the face of the man sitting in the passenger seat. Now DJ's boss, JB, would also tell cops that he saw that dark colored Honda turning the corner right before the shots was fired. And after the shooting, he did see Larry fall to the ground. And seconds later, that same Honda came driving at high speeds towards him and DJ down 54th Street. He would tell officers that he did not see anyone's face inside that car. Not long after, JB will give officers surveillance footage from his business. Now after being identified in a photo lineup, police will put out a warrant for Baby Lefty. And on May 17, 2012, they would arrest Lefty at a hotel. Now during this arrest, they would find a 9mm along with 43 grams of weed, a scale, and $1,200 in cash. Now Lefty would be charged with murder and possession of marijuana. Now once in lockup, He would be placed in a cell with an informant, only known as SJ, who used to be a former member of the Rollin 60s. Now, Lefty would tell SJ that he had got rid of the gun that was used in the murder, and the only evidence that the police had was the surveillance footage of his car leaving the scene. Now, the following year, on February 2013, the prosecution would play that audio of that conversation between Lefty and that informant. Also during the trial, witnesses DJ would testify that he was afraid to identify the shooter at the preliminary hearing because Lefty's family was sitting in the audience along with gang members and had been staring him down, which made him feel intimidated. But he was also going to describe a situation that took place as he was walking home, as 4 men put up in a black SUV, hopped out, and asked him was he the snitch that told on baby Lefty. But in that moment, he was able to run away from the scene. Also, another witness by the name of RJ, who was on his bike that day during the shooting, would testify that he saw someone in the driver's seat of the Honda laughing as if he was having fun after the murder. Eventually, the jury would go back for deliberation. But finally, by the end of his trial, Dante Ellis, aka Baby Lefty, would be found guilty of first-degree murder and guilty of being in possession of marijuana. He would be sentenced to 50 years to life in prison, 25 years for the murder, and 25 for the firearm enhancement. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.